Whenever I think of Anwar Ibrahim, there is a Malay proverb that comes to mind. Kera di hutan disusukan dan anak di rumah kelaparan. For those of you who are watching internationally, it means feeding a monkey in the forest while your baby starves at home. What a perfect description for PMX. After all, Malaysia is
one great family.
In this analogy,
we are baby. Anwar is our father, and the monkey is his international image. Anwar Ibrahim is Prime Minister of Malaysia. Yet, not satisfied to just be Prime Minister of Malaysia, it looks like he wants to be an international hero. Hero to all Muslims. Hero of the OIC. For all we know, as Malaysian citizens, perhaps we are but a stepping stone for our Prime Minister to become Prime Minister of Palestine and thus the Prime Minister of the entire known universe. To be fair to Anwar, yes, he got a black eye, yes, he was in prison for Lord knows how many years becoming Banduan Terhormat. You gotta give him credit, man, like he's building his future beyond Malaysia. The man literally does interviews at the Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum.
he enjoys going everywhere.
Except maybe Sarawak in the floods.
Nice 25mm flood aid PMX, but it still doesn't fix the problem.
Lovely, wonderful, but completely out of touch with the Malaysian people. For those of you who don't know, Malaysia is not a rich country. In fact, it is
Very much in debt.
Yet the Prime Minister is going out there promising financial aid to Lebanon, a Wakaf city of 120 million ringgit, in the middle of a ceasefire which we don't even know is going to hold, as hospitals, roads and schools stay in shambles, halfway constructed in Malaysia, even as our Prime Minister goes out gallivanting while trying to maintain his hero image. Praise be to Anwar Ibrahim. Not Malaysians are suffering. I don't think it's wrong for the Malaysian people to ask, why do you want us specifically to support Palestine when we are a poor, indebted country and there are multiple rich neighbors hanging around Palestine at any given point in time? Don't get me wrong, by the way. There's nothing wrong with supporting Palestine. I mean, they went through a war, 46,707 did, with probably more people under the rubble. It's an international human rights issue that all countries around the world care about, including Japan. How dare you question such a thing? You are inhuman. You have no soul. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, you'll have to excuse us if we're not happy that cost of living is going up, wages have been stagnant since God knows when, and our Prime Minister promises compassion, but it's not with his own money. Seriously, look at what he and his people are saying about the Gaza reconstruction project. Here, let me show you. Malaysian Consultative Council of Islamic Organization CEO Datuk Sani Arabi said, "This is not just an aid project but Malaysia's first Wakaf development model on Palestinian soil, setting an example for the world. It represents the unity of Malaysians regardless of race or religion working together to rebuild Gaza." And I'd be like, what? What unity of Malaysians? Cause last I checked, I was a Malaysian but I wasn't asked to donate to anything. They say they collected 40 million ringgit so far, but then the question is, if you're claiming that this is a project by Malaysians on behalf of Malaysia, then why is there no referendum? And why did you not even ask us about this? It doesn't take a Prime Minister to ask us what we, the Rakyat, think. It simply takes good manners. If you're going out there and saying we Malaysians believe in X, Y, and Z, the international community you love so much should be deeply sus of that.
As they may well be sus of whether you can be criticized or you cannot be.
It's not surprising that even Singaporean media has started covering this and your international allies are becoming sus of your ability to actually deliver on your promises. Speaking of me, by the way, I'm not the only one raising questions about this. I mean, just the other day, Tan Sri Rafida Aziz, our ex-MITI minister, also known as the Iron Lady,
She came out and wrote
a very Malaysia first Facebook status. Talked about how the destruction was on disputed land. Attention should first be paid to Malaysia, maybe after the conflict in Gaza has been clearly resolved, then set up a fund to get money from people who want to donate with minimum involvement of taxpayer money, while saying that maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be going out there denying retirees their retirement savings just because somebody wants to go out there, maintain his woke image and contribute his lasting international heritage to the world.
This actually deserves a more detailed response, by the way, so if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to get subscribed so you don't miss it.
If you thought Anwar was going to give a good response to this, well no, he goes
Straight into defense mode and addresses none of our issues.
Since World War II, this has been the most devastating catastrophe to befall both Muslims and humanity. Their land is completely obliterated and they continue to face humiliation. Children, women, and schools have been wiped out, and when we try to help, even in small ways, what is their response? Oh, we should focus on solving our own problems. Wow. Amazing.
Now, completely ignoring the fact that that's emotional gaslighting and that is exactly what he's supposed to do, our Prime Minister goes and delivers this bombshell.
Problems within our country will never be fully resolved, not even until the end of time, as there will always be shortcomings. Like, WTF? You are the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar. You should be working on these issues instead of declaring that they will never be resolved. You cannot even say that as a joke. Please, Prime Minister, think about how your words actually affect the way that people think.
Maybe also think more carefully about whether Tan Sri Rafidah was saying don't support Palestine.
Before you know it, Mini Anwar comes in. Introducing Muhammad Kamil Abdul Munim. Callback to Anwar Ibrahim. Reason I call him Mini Anwar is that he literally looks like Anwar and he uses the same talking points. Just look at how he describes this. Malaysia cannot and would not be a mere spectator in history, as the country had long stood against all forms of tyranny and oppression. Should we only speak out and fight for justice if it happens within our national borders? If that is the logic, then we should not have strongly condemned apartheid in South Africa in the past. On Bosnia, he says, if we were able to act and show great concern back then, why should we now mind our own business and ignore the call for justice for the Palestinian people? Well, Mini Anwar, how about nobody is calling for justice at the moment, and also your little 120 million ringgit investment is probably going to get destroyed if the ceasefire does not hold. If you're arguing that you can show compassion to both Palestine and Malaysia, my immediate response is no engagement, no thought, only just we have to help with no apparent thought whatsoever, or it seems any consideration of what the Malaysian people actually want to do.
But incidentally, as a Malaysian, I find it ridiculous that Malaysia thinks that it has the moral ground to comment on this.
Do you know, Anwar and Mini Anwar, that right now, paddy farmers are protesting because they're being squeezed by your Madani Rice initiative? Do you know, Anwar and Mini Anwar, that retirees who literally cannot get their money are going to suffer? They can't do anything about it because they have no income. And yet, you are going out there on your international gallivant trying to collect votes from people who are actually suffering because of your decisions. I'm not seeing how you're showing compassion to Malaysians at all. You promise low oil prices.
Menang hari ini, turun minyak esok. Mengapa tak jadi? Mengapa tak jadi kita tak perintah? Saya tidak jadi Perdana Menteri, nak buat macam mana? Kalau sekarang, dengan harga minyak sekarang, tidak ada sebab minyak tidak boleh turun.
No PTPTN loans, decreases in cost of living, and yet here we are. Oh, and to the international community friends that this guy seems to love so much, you won't even ratify ICER saying that, oh, it doesn't fit our nation. And the only reason that you're not taking Israel to the ICJ yourself is because you won't ratify the Rome Statute. Which is why you rely on that South Africa example, not just because it's Nelson Mandela, but literally because it is South Africa that's taking Israel to the court because you cannot.
Oh yeah, let's talk about human rights too.
Malaysia brought in Rohingya refugees when it was politically convenient, but you ditched them when it was politically inconvenient. Palestinians came here for medical treatment or whatever, acted up on 2 occasions.
That's shown in this little fire thing and also this anti-Malaysia chant.
Sure, fine, they were bad, we sent them away, but not all Palestinians are like that. Yet even now, there is no plan for refugees, Palestinian or otherwise, who come into Malaysia. They cannot work, they cannot go to school, and your migrant workers are abused, detained, exploited, even though you go out there preaching your gospel about human rights and social justice. Nobody is buying what you are saying. Not the Palestinians, not the international community you love so much, and definitely not Malaysians. You are no hero of Muslims no matter how many interviews you do with Mehdi Hassan, fight against Olaf Scholz, talk about the height of barbarism, if you cannot be a hero to the people who put you in the position that you're in right now. Dato Sri, look, I don't think it's entirely just a game, so you can win over votes from people who would normally vote pass, even though I think that's a thing. But seriously, you cannot be doing this on our dollar and without asking our opinion. If you really care about social justice, a very simple and basic thing that you should do is to do justice to the Malaysian people and explain where the money from the donations comes from. Look, I'm gonna give you an out here. It's called Wakaf City, right? Wakaf means contributions from the private sector, it means contributions from other people out there. So is it entirely donation driven? Is that what we're supposed to understand? If it's donations, then how much did you really receive and from where did you receive those donations? Also, maybe explain to us why you're so hard up about doing this when the ceasefire isn't even completed yet. Construction is going to take months and people can literally destroy your entire investment in the course of a single airstrike. Also, what are you going to do to make sure that that money goes to where it's supposed to go and not like what happened with Amman Palestine or with some other people who were supposed to use steel for pipes but made them into rockets instead? How are you going to do that, Mr. Prime Minister? Those are all valid questions, and if you really want the Malaysian people to support you, take a referendum. Anybody who wants to donate, they can donate. Make sure it's from the private sector, the money is not tax deductible, contribution is out of the kindness of our hearts, and not because some high-minded government leader hell-bent on building his international reputation decided to go out there, pull our money from our bodies in order to make his name. It's nice that you want to support Palestine PMX, but at some point you will need to care about the people protesting for rice floor prices, the race and religion saber rattling, which you have not addressed at all, as the entire country, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, uses yet another proverb to describe the situation that goes something like harapkan pagar, pagar makan padi. When you're finally done being an international hero of justice, maybe consider the Prime Minister position that you got after years in prison a little bit more seriously and not as a stepping stone for your book deal, consulting arrangement, or excuse to travel around the world. And please, for the love of God, remember the people who voted for you, and if you cannot remember why they voted for you or what you were supposed to do in the first place, maybe just read some of the comments that you see on social media and then you will understand how people think about your antics. Prime Minister Anwar, if you think there's something wrong with what I've said, with what your own citizens are saying, make us believe. Don't be lashing out and giving emotional interviews on social media, because that will convince nobody. Do this as a full-on national Prime Minister's questions. You versus the Malaysian people. Live stream it. Have a long conversation. Convince us with your thoughts, your reason, the way you won our votes as you stood on those podiums all around Malaysia. Otherwise, all I can say is, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. At some point, the emperor will have no clothes, and for all we know, the international hero will become a local zero and PMX will become XPM. Alright, and that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.